What do you think of Africa?
Africa, Africa. Just the mention of it, man. It's like you call my name, man. Well, you know, Africa is the motherland, and Africa is where we rightfully belong.
All right, Black Pop. Today we're gonna be chopping it up on this map, this geography, because if a motherfucker don't know where he at, he don't know where he going. A lot of motherfuckers don't know where they're going because they don't know where they at. And so we're gonna be looking at a lot of various maps today, and I'm gonna be going through a lot of geography that's in reference to Africa, African people, and our political system.
What do you think of Africa?
Africa. Just the mention of it, man. It's like you call my name, man.
Now, we're gonna start dealing with some military science. See, this is the Suez Canal right here. Okay? Now, that's one of the most strategic areas on the planet. Why is that? Here we go. I'm gonna go back to that. See, before they cut that, the Suez Canal is a man-made canal. Before they cut that canal right there, the only place you could enter and leave the Mediterranean Sea was right there at the Straits of Gibraltar. That's it. You come in there, you leave there. That's it. And you understand what I'm saying? But they cut that canal right there, and when they did that, they was able to come through the Mediterranean, cut up the Suez Canal, come down the Red Sea, the Gulf of Aden, then they was able to come clearly up here in the Persian Gulf and come around and go into South or West Asia. You understand what I'm saying? Other than that, they would have to sail all the way around the continent of Africa. You got to keep your eye on those global power centers. That is a global power center, Egypt. And you can see even from there, you can see even in the ancient world, how Egypt controlled the Mediterranean, it controlled the Red Sea, it controlled all this Arabian shit didn't even exist. It didn't even exist. There wasn't no goddamn Arabia. All of this belonged to the Nile Valley. And so again, you know, this just show you the extent. Controlling that right there, the Straits of Gibraltar. Like I said, until they cut that Suez Canal, as you can see, until they cut that Suez Canal right there, that was the only way you can enter the Mediterranean, leave the Mediterranean. You gotta know that. You gotta know that. So basically, you understand, the Egyptians control all of that. They control the whole of the Mediterranean. They control that point. You understand what I'm saying? And what made Egypt such a powerhouse that you can see right here, it got a front on the Mediterranean right here, it got a shoreline, and it got a front on the Red Sea too. So they was able to control this and the trade with Asia. That's scientific. And when we lost Egypt, we lost a prime spot that could not be lost. Anybody that controls that area right there, he's one of the rulers of this planet. It's global spots that if a motherfucker is in control, he's one of the rulers on the planet. The Persian Gulf is one of those areas. And it was in control, it was in the hands of African people long before any of those people you see there today. We lost it. We lost it. Okay. This is Carthage. This was another a great African civilization ran by Hannibal. This is the 3rd century BCE. Now Hannibal, if y'all know anything about Hannibal, Hannibal went up into Europe, came around into Rome, and he besieged Rome for about 30 years. He had conquered Italy all the way from here down there down. He almost came into the boot. He almost came into the boot. And he stayed in Italy for over 30 years. He got there, and some of his generals, they felt he needed backup to take Rome. And His waiting, I think his waiting what cost him. I think his waiting. I think he had enough to take Rome. But like I said, a lot of his generals felt that he didn't. But this is before he even went into Rome. This is just to show you that Africa ruled what you call Spain even before the Moors went into Spain. So it was already dark before the Moors went there. And when did the Moors? 700 AD. The Moors went into and stayed there to around 1400 AD. So they was there almost 800 years. But like I said, Hannibal and the Carthaginians had already controlled Sicily, Sardinia, Corsica. All of that belonged to African people. So that's why them peoples is dark. The African was there first. There was no crackers in these regions. The African ran Rome, the African ran Greece, and that's why you see that the two earliest civilizations of Europe are right there on the Mediterranean, because they was the closest to Africa. That's just it. There's no civilization up there. They always talking about this white, blonde, blue-eyed peckerwood, supposed to have all this knowledge, this Hitler, the Aryan myth. That shit don't even exist in history. They don't even, when you hear about the cracker coming from up there, they are called the barbarians. Those are the ones that sacked Rome. They sacked Rome. You understand what I'm saying? They had nothing to do with that. So when they show you Greece and they show you the little peckerwood, it's a whitewash. It's a blackout. You understand? It's Africans all through. And if you go there right now today, it's still Africans there. You'd be surprised how many Africans is living in them southern regions. And some of them call themselves European. They might call themselves Italians. They might call themselves Romans. But if they didn't tell you that and you just looked at them, you would call them a nigger. And that, we'll have a question to answer at the end, but just keep it in your head. Okay? And so again, you know, this just show you the extent. Controlling that right there. The Straits of Gibraltar. All right, back to the map. Back to the map. The Suez Canal. That's right here. That's right there. It was carved through there. It's only been there maybe 100 years. Okay? Now, what it does, okay, until that canal was cut right there, the only way you could get into the Mediterranean was right here. That's the only way you could get in and out. That's the only way you could get in and out. You got to understand that. Those are power centers on the planet. Anybody that control those power centers, man, they can run shit. They can run shit. If you run this right here, then anybody from America or anybody in the Western Hemisphere, if they trying to come up, do trade with Europe, do trade with Northern Africa, they got to see the man that's running that right there. Period. Okay? Now, the significance of this canal is that if you control this and this, you got a two-piece. You got a hell of a two-piece. And you're running a whole lot of shit. Number one, if you could come through here and go up through the Suez Canal, you come down the Red Sea, but then there's another power point. Right there. Right there. Somalia. See, everywhere them damn power points is, you got beef. You got beef. You know what I'm saying? You got beef right here. And Yemen. Didn't Yemen also start they started some shit over there too. Huh? Them is power centers. Okay, so the cracker is all through there. Somalia, he got shit, because the thing is to make it gravy. You got to run this one, you got to run this one, and you got to run this one and this one. You got to run them all four. If you do, you got the whole world. You got the whole world, because if you don't, if anybody from the Western Hemisphere, if they don't come through here and go around and come into the Persian Gulf, they got to sail all the way around Africa. That's what you got to understand. Okay? Unless you're going to put your shit on donkeys and walk them across land. And that's what most people was doing. See, you can't interpret history from the form. They'll tell you about the Silk Road, how they marched this shit all across. Goddamn it, we've been on the seas for the last 10,000 goddamn years. We weren't carrying no shit across no damn Silk Road. I mean, conceive that. You got to You got to carry all your goods across all these scatless ass countries and fight your way to China, India. And majority of that shit never got there. Never got there. You understand what I'm saying? It never got there. And so the brothers and sisters who took to the sea, see, that's where they began to organize all of these cultures at a very early date. The Arab is a usurper. The Arab comes from down here. He come from, I'm gonna get back to that real quick. Let me get to the damn bottom. See, this is where they come from. They come from down there, okay? The Mediterranean that we know of, Greece, Turkey, all of that, Africans control that. And it's documented.
This is a Byzantine map of the trade routes in green. Where's Mecca on this map? Here's a 7th century Arab trade route map. Do you see what else is missing? It should be right where the question mark is. Here's a 6th century map. Mecca doesn't exist on this map. Here's a 7th century map. Mecca still doesn't exist. Looks like it's still missing on another 7th century map. And yet another 7th century map. Mecca is just non-existent on any map. We can't find it on any map in the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, up until the 7th century. This is the Arabian Sea, and here's where all the spices were coming from the western coast of India and also over here in China. And they used to come across the Arabian Sea up into the Persian Gulf to get over to the Mediterranean world. Now, Dr. Montgomery Watt is the one that came up with the trade route theory that supported the notion that during the 5th and 6th century, the Sassanids over here were warring with the Byzantines over here. The Byzantines and the Sassanids, Persians and Christians, warred for about 200 years, which shut down the Persian Gulf. So the trade had to be redirected down to here, across the Arabian Sea, over to Aden. And then when they went up 1,250 miles, right up the west coast of Arabia. That's the trade route theory. Have you all heard about this theory? It certainly helps out the Meccans enormously, because that supports the notion, therefore, that Mecca would have been on the trade route and would control the trade all the way from the south up into the north, from Aden up to Gaza. But take a look at the trade routes in the 7th century. This is a map from the 7th century, looking at all the trade, and take a look. That question mark is where Mecca is. Mecca is not on any trade route map. Mecca is not listed anywhere in any map. There's no reference to Mecca in any documentation from the 7th century. Take a look and see what is listed. Petra. Petra is the center of the trade, right up there. Mecca should be right there. There's a big question mark there, where Mecca is today, but not on any trade route. All the trade was coming from India and China over in here. And of course, they could have gone this direction to get over to the Mediterranean world, but you have mountains. They have the Himalayas and the Hindu Kush. So they had to take the trade across the Arabian Sea here from the western coast of India. And usually they went up through the Persian Gulf and then over into the Mediterranean world. But then there were big wars between the Sassanids, who were the Persians, and the Byzantines, who were the Christians. And they were warring at each other for about 200 years in the 5th, 6th, up to the 7th century, which meant that all the trade had to be redirected down through the Arabian Sea over to Aden, down here in the south, taken off board ship, and they went across on this line, going right up through Najran, Sana, up to Taif, then according to Islam, down to Mecca, up to Yathrib, which is the archaic name for Medina, and up to Tabuk, Khaybar, and on up to Gaza in the north. That's the trade route theory. Have you all heard this theory before? Every Muslim tells me about this theory, and every Orientalist has said that's the trade route theory. That's what made Mecca rich. See if any of you can see a problem. Do you see a problem? Does anybody see a problem with that theory? There's a sea going right up the west coast. Why didn't they keep it on board ship? That's 1,250 miles by sea. You can go 50 miles by land for the same price as 1,250 miles by sea. It's much cheaper to go by sea. That's why we even do it today. All the cars that you're driving out here that are Toyota, that are all the other products that are coming from China do not come overland. They all come by sea, because it's prohibitively expensive to take it overland. If there was trade going across there, why is it no one took a look at this map? Because right there in Taif, the trade route comes down off the plateau. All of these places, Najran, Tabuk, Khaybar, Taif, Yathrib, they're all on the western plateau. Mecca is not on the western plateau. It's off the western plateau 1,000 feet. From Taif, you have to go down 1,000 feet to get Mecca, and then come back up 1,000 feet to get to Yathrib. Why had no one noticed that before? She said, this doesn't make any sense. that there was no reference anywhere to a place called Mecca in any of the trading documents. In fact, the Arabs were not in charge of the trade. What she found was that the Africans here, the Andalusians, Andalus right there, was in all of the trading documents. And the reason is very clear. My 10-year-old son saw the reason. Let's see if you can find the reason. Notice that they all refer to trade going all the way to India, but the trade was all coming from here, in Africa. It was the Eritreans. It was the Andalus. The name that comes up over and over again is Andalus, the capital of Eritrea at that time. They were in charge of the trade. Why? Because they loved boats. Arabs don't like boats. They like camels. They are nomadic. They're not boat people. No wonder there was no names, no Arab names whatsoever here on the west coast of India. All the names were African. It was the African sea trade that controlled all the trade. So therefore, she asked, well, then what do we know about Mecca? Therefore, what was the importance of Mecca? She scoured all the books. She couldn't find any reference to any place called Mecca until 741. 741.
So we must take back control of Egypt. We must take back control of the Red Sea from beginning to end. We must take back control of the whole of them because it belonged to us anyway. We was in control of it first anyway, is what you got to understand. And this is why Egypt was so dominant in the ancient world. Whoever controls this area now, before, tomorrow, will always be in control of a strategic area on this planet that if you control that, you running some shit. You running it, because niggas got to talk to you. You know, the motherfucker that's coming from over here, that want to go over here, see, if they don't come through here, they got to sail all the way around Africa. So Egypt controlled Europe as far as trade, from Europe to India to China. Egypt was the controlling force. It was the controlling force. And so that's a power source. Once you understand that, I don't give a fuck about the religion, I don't give a fuck about... Well, if you control that right there, you have a power center. You running shit. And automatically, what will make Africa the continent that it must be, it got to control them waterways. Immediately, around Africa. And see, the white man, especially Somalia, see, the Gulf of what they call Aden. That's why they're dealing with Somalia, because they need this whole system. They need the Mediterranean, they need the Red Sea, they need that Gulf of Aden. Because for the United States, that's their cannonball run over into the South Pacific. Okay? From this direction. You know what I'm saying? To control the Persian Gulf. Why you think they can still, they stay in these centers right here? So that's strategic. That's why they control Egypt. And the Israelites is the crackers that they put right there to control that gate. That's it. Any nigga tell you anything else, he lying. That's why them crackers, them Israelites was put there. They are the gatekeeper to make sure that that particular area stay in control of white supremacy. They need it. They need it. And so now that you know that, now all that religion shit, throw it out. Now you know why them crackers called the Israelis is over there. They is the fucking gatekeeper. They the gatekeeper to make sure that this right here, see them there, that's the Suez Canal. Okay? They float them damn boats in and up out through there, go into the Red Sea, go around into the Persian Gulf where they is right now, Iraq, going over there, into Korea in that area. They need that. If the United States did not have that canal, they would have to sail all the way around Africa. That's strategic. That's strategic. And so that's what they're doing down there in Somalia. They need both. This is a door right here, and this is a door right here, okay? And then this is a doorway right there. So you got three doors right there. And Somalia is causing trouble up in there. All up in there, they causing trouble. Because they shutting down that doorway. Bitch, you ain't bringing shit up in here. Most of that shit they bringing in is military. Okay, they not telling y'all that. They bring tanks and shit and all that armament, and the Chinese and shit. They shipping all that shit up there to the Sudan so they can use that shit on our peoples in Darfur. What the fuck, man? This is about resources. It ain't about no love for African people. They don't give a fuck. Fuck how many niggas them Arabs kill. As long as they can get their oil and them resources for the best benefit of China, they don't give a fuck. Okay? Nobody give a fuck about us. That's why they control Egypt. And the Israelites is the crackers that they put right there to control that gate.
Look at Palestine geographically. It's a door that swings three ways. It's at the back door of Europe, the side door of Western Asia, and the front door of Africa. Strategically, it is well located.
You studying this geography. This is lush land over here. And so even when you hear about Abraham coming into Egypt, why did he come in? Famine. You hear Joseph, the story. Now these are stories, but in them stories, you can hear what the motherfuckers is longing for. They hungry. Any motherfucker over here hungry. They ain't got no water, ain't got no food, ain't got no vegetation. It's a desert. It's a desert right now. It was a desert even probably 5, 6, 7,000 years ago. It was still a desert.
Rome's hold over its far-flung provinces weakens. In North Africa, it faces a new and fierce challenge: Islam.
The Arabs, noticing the weakness of the Romans in North Africa, began to court the favor of the Africans.
Arabs convinced the local black populations to join in the struggle against a common oppressor. They also convinced many of them to abandon their traditional beliefs and pledge their allegiance to Allah.
The Africans assumed that by supporting the Arabs would get the Romans literally off their back. They were right. The Arabs did get the Romans off their back, but the Arabs replaced the Romans on their back. And like most conquerors, they declared war on African culture and African ways of life. The Arab has always been a propagator and a defender of slavery. They've always rationalized slavery based on Islam. I do not think any religion sanctions slavery. And anytime you use a religion to sanction slavery, you're misusing that religion and misusing the word of God. Well, the Christians did it, and the Arabs have done it, and the Hebrews have done it. It's not right in any case.
The Arabs had to some degree institutionalized the practice of African slavery. The Europeans internationalized it. In Europe, the wealth amassed from the slave trade makes the Industrial Revolution possible, while laying the foundations of modern capitalism. In the Americas, the traffic in human souls creates a vast African diaspora, millions upon millions of people ripped from their homelands, transported in chains to a distant, hostile world.
The European came into Africa as a guest and was treated as a guest. The Africans are unsuspected, political, naive, as some of them still are, because he had nothing against the Europeans and he had never enslaved any Europeans. He just assumed automatically no European would enslave him. He had never dealt with anyone who would enslave the host and the wife who cooked the meal and lie about it. Around 1442, the first slaves would be taken out of West Africa. Spain and Portugal goes to the Pope, the leading arbitrator of that day, the one person in Europe with the greatest authority. The Pope would say to Spain and Portugal, you take the East and you take the West, and you two good Catholic nations start fighting among yourselves. And then the profound statement before departure, you are both authorized to reduce to servitude all infidel people. The slave trade now had been sanctioned, and Europeans had been told they need not feel guilty of it because you're doing this to an infidel who is outside of God's grace. England went into the slave trade with a vengeance, led by Captain Hawkins and the good ship Jesus. The ship was called the good ship Jesus. The coat of arms on the ship was two Africans bound back to back with their arms tied. So they saw no contradiction in being in the slave trade and being Christians at the same time. We cannot deal with this enough because we're still suffering from this inside of the mind of a lot of people in this world, into the millions. We are outside of humanity, outside of the grace of God. That's a terrible feeling as you walk the earth, because what has been taken away is your essential humanity, your human beingness. And when they take away your human beingness, they take away your nationness. Early in the 19th century, the concept of slavery began to yield to the concept of colonialism, a more sophisticated form of slavery. Slavery as a system became unwieldy, and besides, there's a point where it was saturated. Everybody who wanted a slave had one, who could afford one. The European nations of size that did not have any portion of Africa began to grumble. At the Berlin Conference, 1884 and 1885, the European powers of substance who did not have any part of Africa now were given some parts.
Africans did not fall at the feet of the European invaders. They fought fiercely, bravely, and continually.
Anti-colonial wars started up down the coast of West Africa, in parts of Inner Africa, and in the Congo. There was armed resistance. The Zulu wars lasted from the 1650s, when the Boers arrived, to the last Zulu war was 1906. In Ghana, the Ashanti wars lasted from early in the 18th century to the last Ashanti war led by a woman, Ye Asantewa, in 1900. For a while, it looked as though the Europeans would not be able to hold on to the continent. More manpower and more ruthless treatment brought it mainly under their control. By 1884, 1885, and afterward, there was no dispute about who was in charge of Africa, just who was in charge of what part of it. We have been hung up with a myth, the myth of the conqueror and the invader as the bringer of civilization. No people ever brought civilization to another people at no time and at no place in history. It's one of the most protracted lies we ever listened to. Civilization is the art of being civil. The word civil means being peaceful. And there's nothing peaceful about aggression. Only the slave can abolish slavery. If someone is on your back, you have to bend a little to balance them on your back. Now, the best move if you want to get them off of your back is to stand straight up.
Okay. Now, this is Africa in 1914. For everybody that love white people, so they ain't all bad. They ain't all bad. Okay, then, let's deal with this. Egypt, Anglo-Egyptian Sudan, the British. That bitch ass cracker was there. He was there. Okay then. Okay, this the French right here. French West Africa and this area down, that belonged to the French. Huh? Okay then. The Spanish, the purple, right there. I don't know what that was in 1914. We don't know, because at the Berlin Conference, when they went in here and chopped this shit up, see, all the original names was removed. Now, what y'all got to understand, that most of those boundary lines that you see on the African continent or any continent today, they were established at the Berlin Conference. They was only put there to divide that land up between the crackers. Before the crackers got there, those were not no boundary lines. Okay? You cannot go by those boundary lines on that map. That was only to divide that land up between crackers. Okay, that's the Spanish up there. They got a little bit. I guess they was the little, see, them the niggas in Europe. Show ass back, nigga. You ain't getting no prime spots. Okay, the Portuguese. Now they got a couple spots down there. The Belgians. The Belgians got the Congo. Leopold. Most vicious, that they say before Hitler, he was the motherfucking prime example of mass murder, of genocide on the planet. He killed more people in Congo than Hitler even dreamed that it was Jews. They won't even talk. You can go get the book by Mark Twain, the motherfucker that wrote Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer. He was also a communist. A lot of people don't know that he was considered a communist in his time. And they really talk bad about Mark Twain. But he had wrote this book called King Leopold Sequelacy. And he was over there and documented for himself all of the mass murder that was going on in the Congo, where they was chopping off arms, chopping off legs, decapitating Africans over there. So I don't understand how today a cracker can call anybody a terrorist. Then when most of all these damn practices that they blaming on somebody else, we got from their ass. Straight up and down. When they caught them over there in Iraq, Abu Ghraib, that prison, when they had Arabs all in there stacking their ass up, sticking broomsticks up in their ass, they was doing all that. What y'all think they did in slavery? See, a lot of people don't want to look at that. They didn't just start that shit. They have been doing it. He still has the same plan for our people. And that's why we walking around out here today without shit, ain't gonna have shit, because that was the plan from the beginning. He brought you here to labor. That's it. And Marcus Garvey said that once he had finished with our ass, he was going to bring in all those immigrants to replace us. That is what has happened. The new nigga is the Mexicans. And so the Germans had a nice little piece too. Italy. That's Libya, and I see they got Somalia, and it looked like they had a little piece of Eritrea, which was when they split Ethiopia. And independent was Ethiopia. That's the only nation in Africa that was spared because they fought back from imperialism, colonialism. So they never had technically a white ruler. But for anybody to say all white people ain't the same, that's a goddamn lie. All white people took their ass into Africa and got a piece of it. And see, the cracker that you think is the good cracker, see, he's benefiting from the bad cracker. That's right. So don't sit here and talk that shit. I bet you, if you ask him, if you love me so much, motherfucker, switch sides with me. That's right. And that'll be the last time you see that peckerwood. He's out of there. Nobody want to live this life that we live. So, we looking again at the lush regions of Central Africa, East and West. And so you're looking at Nigeria, Central African Republic, Cameroon, Uganda, Congo, Rwanda, Burundi, Angola, Zambia, Malawi, all of these regions. Now ask yourself, if they got, now understanding for all my brothers and sisters that don't understand that this region is the Great Lakes region of Africa. You got the so-called Lake Victoria. We understand that's an imperialistic title. You got Tanganyika, you got Malawi. You have to study those lakes. That's fresh water. Outside of the Great Lakes region, right here in Michigan, this is the second largest Great Lakes region on the planet Earth. And so you look here and you look at all of the precious minerals that's in Africa. That's how you see when you go down in our kings and our queens tombs that we have so much gold and precious minerals in our tombs. That's why we like it today. It's something that's always been in our blood. So I don't knock our people for wanting to look good, but we got to understand that that was a different time. We was not killing our family folks, okay? We was not buying it from the enemy. You know, we rocking Jews, but y'all going to the Jew, buying that shit. And they over there, the ones pushing a lot of that shit that's going on in Africa. Them goddamn guns got over there just like they got over here. Pushing them guns, and them Africans talking about they can't feed themselves, but they sure can get a goddamn assault rifle. How that shit get in there? Okay? So they keep them beefs going on just like gangs beefing against one another. Okay? You give one nigga some, don't give one nigga nothing. Okay? You look at piranhas. We have piranhas. You understand? If you don't feed them piranhas, you got to be on time feeding them piranhas. If you late and you miss a day or two, they'll start nibbling on the smaller piranhas. You'll see nicks all in their fins and stuff, where the bigger ones will start eating on the little ones. So if you don't feed them, and this is what happened in the community. You're not spiritually and mentally feeding these babies, and they starting to eat on one another. But see, this is what the metal netter is, when you can take an animal like that and show a science. See, that's metal netter. See, and that's exactly what's happening to our people. See, so we got to figure out how we gonna get our shit back. That's all it is to it. No other plan is a real plan, because it's asking us to live without what is rightfully ours. And so that's not a plan. That's a compromise. And we should not be compromising with the goddamn enemy about our motherland. Bottom line, they got to get the hell out of Africa. All right. Bottom line. And you see right here, all of the fruits and vegetables and all the vegetation and grains that's coming up out of Africa, going straight to Europe, going straight to the white man here in America. And then the same cracker that's stealing all the food, putting these goddamn commercials on Africa, showing African people starving. Why they starving? Because y'all shipping all the wealth and all of the food to crackers in Europe, crackers in America. See, and then come get your money off a goddamn infomercial. Talking about save the babies. So they getting paid all ways. Again, looking at it up close. The Gulf of Guinea. This is a power center. You got to control that. You got to control that. Do you understand what an economy we have just on the water systems alone? Just on the water system. You know, you have to clean these rivers. Shit gather in these rivers. You have to clean them. And then what they'll do is that they'll be cutting tributaries. Cutting tributaries, right on this edge, they can cut tributaries out there. Bring more green life, you know what I'm saying, expand. Africa was much more irrigated in the ancient world because we have people fulfilling those jobs. You understand but the Lake of Guinea, you got to control that. Why you think the cracker flowed at our ass from up out of there? You understand what I'm saying? This is a strategic area that you must control. You must control that. And so again, you're looking at Lake Victoria. I hate to call it that, but if you go to the map, you might not, you won't see nothing else but Lake Victoria. You need to go into the African book and find out what the different African countries got different African names for it. But we should learn the African name. But while we out Here today, I'm going to give you the common name for it so that if you go back to the map, you'll be able to locate it. This is Lake Tanganyika down here, Lake Malawi. Have more fresh water, have more fish than any other lake on the planet, right there. We can eat. Why is there so many people in Africa starving? You got Lake Victoria, got over 500 varieties of fish. Why are we starving? Why are we starving? Because the cracker is over there raping, and so when they bust that goddamn hole in the ground, you got to understand, they done that shit all over the world. You think that was the first time they bust a goddamn hole? This is just one that's just went out of control. That they can't cover this one up. You understand what I'm saying? Okay, again, this is Lake Victoria. You see the mountain regions over here? This is where the Nile River flows from up out of these mountains. Okay, it flows from up out of those mountains down into Egypt. All of this is lush. All of this is fish. All of this is animals. Yeah, Africa is starving because they control power centers on our continent. We must get back to Africa. Let me tell you, Africa is fighting. Don't get it twisted. You think, you know, a lot of people think Africa is just over there bowing down. Boy, there's some gorillas off in that goddamn, in the heart of Africa. And you don't want to see them if you ain't down. If you ain't down, you don't want to go up in there. They'll fight. Africa has reached 1 billion people. It was just in the news. It's reached 1 billion. That's on the continent. That's on the continent. It's at least 1 billion outside of the continent, with 2 billion people. And in Africa, the average age in Africa is almost 30 years old. It might be up under 30. How the hell you gonna fight 1 billion people that young? That goddamn, when you got a bill, when you call out China, people look at China with authority. That's I think they say it's a 1 billion.3. Man, and so they use that to their advantage. If you go fucking with China, most people will say, I don't know, they're fucking with all them people, because you know what they could do. They could put 5 million soldiers down on your ass. And so when you're looking at them kind of numbers, okay, United States won't be able to go in China like they went in Iraq. Okay? And if they having that much problem in Iraq, what kind of problems would they have going into China? Okay? Now the Chinese, they ain't shit compared to gorillas out of Africa. Okay? When the black man get his mind right, and if he wants to kill some shit, why you think the United States, primarily their military, their army, is blacks? Right. It's a mercenary army. The Roman army was a mercenary army. Well, no, the white man can't fight no war. He ain't got no people. And so all of their military is mostly niggas. They starve our ass till we don't have no other way to support our family. You go in the military. ROTC. All that shit that they have in high school. Okay, with a surface area of 68,000 square kilometers, 26,000 square miles, Lake Victoria is Africa's largest lake and the largest tropical lake in the world, as I showed y'all. The largest tropical lake and is Earth's second largest freshwater lake. Only North America's Lake Superior is large. In terms of volume, it is the world's 8th largest continental lake, containing 2,000 some acres and feet of water. Got fresh water, family. But if you go there, you're gonna see all them damn white corporations that's over there it's all type of mines and shit around that lake. And a lot of plants and shit around it. They done flooded them damn waters with a lot of garbage, a lot of poison, a lot of whatever that shit that be coming up out of them plants. But there are a lot of toxins that leaked into the lake. So the lake is in trouble. It's in trouble. And the African people don't give a damn because they ain't got no economy. And so if the white man, if that's the only way they can get in the economy is to go through the white. So they think. You understand? They don't think outside of the white man's paradigm. They don't have no nationalistic aspirations, and so the only way they can feed themselves is to crawl to the white man. Whatever job he give them, that's what they take.
Africa has always been and still is the world's richest continent. Africa has always had things other people wanted, thought they couldn't do without, and didn't want to pay for. So therefore, there's always been an excuse to invade Africa.
We dealing with economics. This is the global goddamn system. The first one was America. So you got the bottom 99.9% of the globe only got 19% of the wealth. The bottom, that's almost goddamn 100%. Do y'all understand that? Somebody needs to tell y'all that. We were just talking about resources, and what we're looking at is the top exports from every country, okay? The top exports of every country. So you can see that Africa has a broad-based chain of resources, from food, hear me out, we got coffee, we got grains, we got livestock. You can see livestock is the #1 export from Somalia. You got livestock in Eritrea. You got coffee. You got grains. You got tea. You got gold. You got aluminum. You got copper. You got platinum. You got diamonds. What else you got down there? Niggas even got. We got petroleum. We got timber. We got cotton. We got cocoa beans. I mean, and these is just, we even got clothing and textiles. Okay? And so now when you go to the other continent, here we is in Europe, you can see that the cracker don't have no food. He don't even got the oil. Most of what they making in Europe is motor vehicles, machinery and transportation equipment, engineering products. What is Europe producing? Europe is producing all of the fucking things they need to extract. They are producing extraction machinery to come back over into Africa and extract the petroleum, extract the oil, extract the gold, extract the diamonds, extract the goddamn platinum. But they don't have the food. They don't have the gold. They don't have the goddamn clothing. Let's go to South America. Look at this. Either I'm dumb, or the cracker dumb, or the motherfuckers who stay in Brazil is dumb. How the fuck is out of the Amazon rainforest, which we looking in South America, that the main fucking export out of that area is transport equipment? Am I dumb? Who the fuck made this shit? All that goddamn cane and all them herbs and shit down there in the rainforest, and you mean to tell me the #1 fucking export up out of that area is transport equipment? Get the fuck out of here. See? And so what you got? Copper, soybean. So as you can see, South America cannot compete with Africa, nor can Europe. And matter of fact, you can put fucking South America and Europe together and they cannot compete with Africa. Let me go over. Here we looking at, what we looking at, y'all? We looking at Arabia, We looking at Arabia. We looking at Russia, okay? Afghanistan. You see the opium? Afghanistan. So you see, all them motherfuckers got is oil. They ain't got food. They ain't got water. They ain't got all of the things that we, wait a minute, let me come back over to Africa. They don't have the diamonds. They don't have the uranium, the cotton, the gold, the fish, the cocoa bean, the coffee, the livestock, the platinum, the uranium. They don't have that. All them motherfuckers got is oil, petroleum, okay? And I'm going to go over here to China, electronic equipment and machinery. We go to India, precious stones. Okay, you got some wood products. Down there, you got some electronic and computer parts. None of that shit you can eat. None of that shit you can eat. So you looking at literally Africa. Hear me out, y'all. Hear me out. Literally, the continent of Africa is richer than all other fucking continents combined. That's ridiculous. And it's ours. It's our land. Okay? And eventually, if we gonna have the type of wealth that we see in our dreams, it's gonna be with them resources. The dollar is already over. You got a lot of nations already moving out of it. But they shit gonna collapse too. The bottom line is that who rules Africa rules the world. That's it. Whoever rules Africa rules the world. You got to understand what Africa is. Most people don't even understand what Africa is. They don't even understand this map. If you ask a motherfucker to name 2-3 countries in Africa, they couldn't do it. We have an economy. We have industry. The only thing is you must get the peckerwood off of the land. That's it. They raping Africa for the wealth of Europe, for the wealth of the rich Arabians, for the wealth of Russia, China. You have to go pick up a Wall Street Journal. Look at the exports and imports all over the world. They are in Africa. Everybody is in Africa but Africans. That's it. Niggas is floating in space. They in fucking, they in stars. They in the Bible. The motherfuckers in the Quran. And everywhere. But your ass is starving, going down there praying. You don't have no nationalism. That we go back to Garvey. And that's why Garvey was such a threat. You understand what I'm saying? That's because he knew that in order for African people to rise again, we must reclaim the resources. We must reclaim Africa. Ain't no other solution that we could discuss.
History is a clock that people use to tell their political and cultural time of day. It is also a compass that people use to find themselves on the map of human geography. History tells of people where they have been and what they have been, where they are and what they are. Most important, history tells a people where they still must go and what they still must be. The relationship of history to the people is the same as the relationship of a mother to her child. African history and Negro history are the missing pages of world history. Son, go study the history of your masters. Go study the history of the people who enslaved you and find out why they found it a necessity to remove an entire people from the respectful commentary of the history of the world. Well, my earliest impressions of them was a people in power who intended to stay in power. And I began to wonder why they had so much and other people had so little, and why everybody I knew worked harder than they. Who made this arrangement? I studied European history and world history. Now, when I went back to Schomburg with some knowledge of background of European history, now he began to show me how to study African history. Arthur Schomburg taught me the interrelationship of African history to world history. Willis N. Huggins of the Old Harlem History Club taught me the political meaning of history. And from the lectures of William Leo Hansberry of Howard University, I learned the philosophical meaning of history. The most valuable lesson I would learn is that when you address a people by their right name, that name must relate to land, history, and culture. All people go back to the geography of their original origin and identify themselves, no matter where they live on the face of the earth. We have overused the word black because black tells you how you look, but it don't tell you who you are. You can call an Italian white, but that don't tell you anything about him. We are the only people who seem to have lost that all essential trait of geographical and historical reference.